those of you who don't know me, my name is Daniel. I am a parishioner here at St-Augustine's, and I'm also a first-year seminarian. So I just came back from finishing my first semester. I haven't taken any philosophy or theology courses yet, so I may have the tendency to slip into heresy. I've already done one since it has been pointed out by my formator, but please bear with me. During the first week I entered seminary, all of us seminarians were gathered in a lecture hall, and they gave us a document titled Great Expectations. And for myself, I had entered seminary without much expectation at all. My application process was pretty rushed, and I hadn't really done too much research on what seminary life was going to be like. So when I heard that the formators and really everybody in the church, family, friends, even people I didn't know, had these great expectations for not just me, but all of us seminarians, I was a little bit shocked and a little bit scared as well. And I know many of my brother seminarians felt the same way. Just knowing that there were all these people who were watching us and, just seeing how, whether or not we're going to become priests and whatnot. So it was a little bit nerve-wracking for sure the first few weeks. But then we eventually realized that all these people who were watching us, our formators, our families and friends, our fellow parishioners, they really wanted the best for us, and they were praying for us. And that realization really helped us a lot, just, being a little bit more at peace. And we also realized that, we were in seminary not to perform and be perfect already, but to grow and be formed. So in that Great Expectations document, there was also an outline of sort of the 4 pillars of seminary formation. Those 4 pillars are spiritual, human, pastoral, and intellectual. So I just want to touch on each one of those pillars today, very briefly, beginning with spiritual formation. So our spiritual formation is baked right into our schedule. We've got Mass at 7 o'clock every day, followed by midday prayer before noon, and then after lunch we have holy hour from 5 to 6, and then Vespers, like we just did today. And then in the evening we have Rosary and night prayer. Now, before coming into seminary, I was doing not nearly as much prayer as that. And I know many of my brother seminarians, that was the same for them as well, and so just being launched into that sort of regimen was a little bit overwhelming. And I know that for the first 2 months, many of us were becoming really tired. And there were classes also dispersed as well, classes, socials, activities, formal events, all that stuff. So it was kind of always go, go, go. And a lot of us, by the end of the 2 months, were feeling tired, we're feeling almost burnt out. Some of us were falling sick. But I was speaking with a brother seminarian a few weeks ago, and he was telling me about how, at first, yes, it was hard, he was fighting, he felt like he was fighting against the schedule, wrestling against it, like Jacob wrestled against God. But eventually he came to the realization that, this formation is kind of his life now, and why not just let go and surrender to it? And once he did that, he found that the schedule was actually quite enjoyable, and he really just felt at peace. That feeling of being overwhelmed was gone. And when he told me that, I realized, I had actually ended up doing the same thing subconsciously. And I think that's sort of the theme for our spiritual year, our first year this year, just learning to surrender everything to God. Letting go of your own ideas about how your time should be spent, what you should be reading or doing, and just giving yourself up to formation. Now for the human pillar, one of the biggest aspects of seminary life is the community. There are 70 of us in total. 12 of us live downtown, that's the first year guys, so that's me. And then occasionally we'll go up to Scarborough, where everybody else is. But regardless, there's a lot of community life. All our meals are together, and if you're walking around, chances are you're going to meet a brother just hanging out. And so, as an introvert, that can be a lot, and many of us are introverts. And the thing with community life, however, is you do end up learning a lot about yourself, just being in that very intense social environment. You learn a lot about how you react, strength as well. The other blessing with seminary life is the fact that we get to be on such casual terms with a lot of wonderful clergy, priests, but bishops and cardinals as well. We in fact have Cardinal Thomas Collins, the previous Archbishop of Toronto, who actually lives with us. So a lot of times he'll come down for breakfast or one of the other meals, and he'll just be joking with us, sharing anecdotes, sharing his wisdom, and it's just wonderful to be able to spend that time with him. And generally speaking, I found just speaking with all these clergy, all these amazing bishops and cardinals, we've been able to see clergy as people, as real humans, because I think sometimes it can feel like these priests, you sort of see them up on the altar and just wonder, oh, that person must be so holy, he must have been born that way, or whatnot. But being able to interact with them just helps us realize that, well, these are people as well. And, you know, when they were young, they were in seminary just like we were. They didn't know what they were doing. And it's not that it lowers our respect for them, but if anything, our respect for them becomes elevated because we realize that these are people who are flawed, and they grew as a human being to be able to occupy the office that they now occupy. And so that has been, the human formation has, in that sense, has been really, really edifying for me. Now that leads me to the pastoral pillar, pastoral ministry. Human formation, of course, is extremely important for pastoral ministry. If you don't have your stuff together, if you don't understand yourself, it's very difficult to go out and help other people. But pastoral ministry itself also has its own quirks, things you have to learn. And so for us spiritual year guys, every Thursday we go to an apostolate where we're sent out in pairs. Some of us go to the school, some of us go to the hospital, some of us go to a soup kitchen, others go to a retirement home. I go with another brother seminarian of mine to a hospital every Thursday, and it has been a real eye-opening experience. I haven't had too much, thanks be to God, too much sickness or death in my family, and so I haven't really been exposed much to the sick and the dying. And so just being thrown into that hospital environment was a little bit disorienting at first, and I remember the first few weeks we were going there. Before we got on the bus, me and my brother seminarian, we would pray. We would also be feeling this sort of like dread, because we knew that we would be spending the entire day walking into hospital rooms of strangers we didn't know. Some of them would be like grumpy, we knew that, and some of them would just be like super awkward. We have no idea what we're going to say, we don't know what we're supposed to do. But through the grace of God and through wonderful mentorship from the other ministers at the hospital, we were able to sort of get used to that and really begin to witness the fruits of a ministry of presence. Because a lot of the times, yeah, we don't know what we're going to say, and we just walk in, we say hi, and we make some simple conversation, we're not doing too much, but suddenly we see the person in the hospital bed, just something lights up in them. They get teary-eyed, and they're just thanking you for coming to visit them. And a lot of times, yeah, I'm just standing there, I'm witnessing this happen, and I'm like, what did I do? I'm just standing there. I don't think I did anything special. But somehow God is working through us to move that person's heart, to bring them healing. And so it's been a real privilege just to be able to witness that. Now finally, I want to touch on the intellectual formation. Now, as a spiritual year seminarian, I mentioned, we don't actually take any real courses. Like, we have lectures, and we have homework, but none of it is graded, no exams or anything like that. It really is meant to be like a spiritual year, not an academic year. But there are a few classes that come to mind, like one in particular really stands out. We had a class on spirituality by a priest named Father Charles Name. Some of you may have heard of his books. He was doing a lecture on the spirituality of St. Teresa of Avila and St. John of the Cross. And he was walking us through St. Teresa's 7 mansions that she mentions in her interior castle. And he was just going through them one by one, just explaining each one. And he gets to the 7th mansion, which is the spiritual marriage. And he suddenly gets all fired up. And he tells us, this is what the church needs. The church needs people who are at this mansion, the spiritual marriage. It needs great saints. It needs all of us to strive. We are all called to this 7th mansion. And I remember after the class, many of us sort of were many of us brothers seminarians were discussing that particular point he had made, and we were like, wow, it's so easy to fall into this trap of telling ourselves, perfection is too hard, it's not for me, the saints are just built different, and I can't do that. And of course, there is an element of truth to that, in that we can't, with our own power, become perfect, right? It's only through God's grace that we can achieve that perfection that we're meant for, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't strive for that perfection in this life. And so that was a really good reminder of that fact. And so for me, that really changed the way I was approaching my spiritual life and my entire formation. Just knowing that I and all Christians are called to that radical sainthood. So I think I would want to just leave all of you with that thought, that idea that all of us are called to that perfect holiness, and not to despair and give up, not to whiten up and just like be super scrupulous about everything, but also just always to fan that flame of desire to grow in holiness and grow in perfection. So thank you very much, and thank you for all your prayers this semester. We'll continue to need it in the following semester and hopefully beyond, God willing. Of course, we'll also be keeping you in our prayers as well.